because that is key to being successful in business, is being right. But it's not about starting right. It's about becoming right. It's about getting to the right answer. You get to stay in business as long as you are right enough, as long as you are making enough right decisions. It is the mistakes that put us at risk of going out of business. And so the way to not make mistakes is to test and validate. And let's talk about how to do that. Welcome to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast, where we take the mystery out of marketing and help you get more leads and sales with a clear brand and proven marketing tactics. I'm your host, Alexander. You ever run a marketing campaign that was supposed to work, that the marketing gurus said would work, or a course that you took, or a friend, and it didn't? Happens all the time. It seems like there's going to be this marketing strategy or these Facebook ads or this framework or whatever it is that is going to lead to you being a millionaire overnight or to these incredible results. And then you try it and it falls flat. Well, there's a reason for that. And today I'm going to get into it. My name's Alexander. I'm the founder of Clear Brand. And today I'm going to walk through the 4 laws of marketing. Now, why do we call this the laws of marketing? Why not strategies or tactics? Well, think about the world of engineering. You're going to build a bridge, right? Now, let's say that I don't know anything about physics. Can I build a bridge? Probably. And it might be able to take the weight of one person. But can I build the Golden Gate Bridge? No. Can I build a bridge that's going to be able to handle the weight of more than one person? Probably not. In order to do that, I need to know the laws of physics. There's a lot that goes into building a bridge. And in your business, you need to build a bridge between yourself and your customers. That's what is called marketing. It is a way for them to discover you and then to buy from you. And what a lot of folks are doing is they're running around saying, look, this is how I built a bridge. You should do it this way too. Well, your business is different and it needs to hold different weight. And so if this person who's giving you this recommendation does not understand the laws of marketing, this bridge or this marketing strategy that they are providing to you likely won't hold the weight. Now, it will for some people. It will work sometimes. And what that does is it allows them to blame you. Well, it worked for these people over here. You must have just done it wrong. Or they just don't know how the laws of marketing actually work. With an understanding of the laws of marketing, you can build a better bridge between you and your customers, one that lasts longer, that actually gets the results, that can hold the weight that your business and marketing needs it to hold. So let's jump into the first of the 4 laws of marketing. These things are absolutely foundational, and you're going to be thinking about strategies and tactics as I go through this. They're all based on the 4 laws of marketing. And I'll give some examples, but feel free to say, oh, those Facebook ads that I ran, they're under this law, and maybe I should try this other thing to see if that helps. I'm not going to get into specific copywriting tactics or specific Facebook ads tactics. That's not what laws are about, right? If you were taking a course on the laws of physics, that is a different course than a bridge building course. And so I'm going to do another video on the Marketing Mansion, which is how to choose activities to be engaging in. It's how the laws build up together into a structure. And then I'll be doing other videos on specific applications, but we're starting foundational with the 4 laws of marketing. The first law is we have to be building memories. That's the first law of marketing, is build memories. When I go to buy something, and when you go to buy something, what's going through our heads, right? We've heard all this information these days about funnels and how you have to have all these 17 steps in your funnel, and you have to have a lead magnet, and you have to have this other thing. Let's just pause on that for a second, and let's think about what are we thinking about when we are buying something. You go to the grocery store, you go online, you go to Amazon. Sometimes you have a brand in mind, and sometimes you're just doing some research. Now, memories are a massive part of the direction that you're going to go with your decisions here, because if you have come across a brand before, and studies have shown this, if you've come across a brand, even if you don't remember it, you have a preference for that brand. You would prefer to buy that brand over another one. That's the smallest amount of memories, and it still has an impact. You prefer this brand over their competitors. If you go to Amazon and you search for, let's say, colostrum powder or something, and you happen to have come across one of these brands in a Facebook ad, or a friend mentioned it, or wherever, you now have a slight preference for them. We go from there, though. Okay, well, what happens if you're seeing advertisements on TV and billboards and Facebook ads, and you're kind of inundated? There's some large amount of mental real estate that brand is now taking up. And it's possible that when you go do your search to buy this product, you actually search for that brand specifically. So you can see the power of memories here. When a person enters the market for a product or service, the first place that they enter is not your company. Well, that's where we want them to enter. But the actual customer journey is they enter the category as a whole. So if I want ice cream, for example, but I've never had ice cream before, I don't have a preference for a specific brand. I go to the store, I'm looking at all of these things. No memories present, no preference, right? I've entered the category for ice cream. What we want people to do is then get to your product. And so if they have come across you, and we're going to get to how they might come across you and the other laws here, but this is foundational because we want to make sure that if and when they come across your brand, it can lodge itself in their mind and they can think about you when they enter the category. And they're looking at you next to your competitors. Even if you sell services, it functions the exact same. Looking at you next to your competitors, we want them to have that preference for your brand. Now, ideally, if there's enough memories built up, they won't even look at your competitors. They will go straight to you. That's the ultimate goal with building memories. So how do we build memories? Now, like I said, we're going to get into the process of people discovering you. That's in the other laws. But building memories is foundational because when they're coming across you, we want to be doing two things to make sure that you can lodge yourself in their mind and you can start to take up mental real estate. The first thing to do to build memories is tell a clear story. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, facts tell, stories sell, and it's true. One of the best ways to engage with your customers is through emotions. That's going to catch their attention. That's going to help build memories. That's going to end up being far more persuasive than a list of facts and figures. And the way to engage with emotions is with story. Now, I'm going to be doing another video on story and the 6-part framework that we use to help our clients tell their stories. For now, we can break it down into the 3-act structure. First act is the setup. So what's going on in your customer's world? Second act is your solution. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, so go find that video when it's out. But the second act is the solution. So they start looking for, how do I solve my problems? How do I get what I want? Let's say that they come across you. How do you present yourself and build enough trust that they might actually decide to work with you? The third act is the resolution. So this is where we find out, well, are they going to get what they want? And what that means in this scenario is, are they going to buy from you? If you can actually help them solve their problem or get what they want, we want them to buy from you. That is the action for them to take in the third act. So storytelling is, telling a clear story is the first way to build memories. The second way to build memories is with a distinctive design. Now, I use that term intentionally, distinctive, unique. We want people, when they see a Facebook ad or a billboard or whatever marketing you're doing, we want them to know that is you. So you think about insurance, and there's a lot of insurance companies that are really good at this. So Geico is an example. You see a Geico commercial, you see the gecko, you immediately know that's Geico. Liberty Mutual, they're bright yellow, and I don't like their commercials personally, but they're unique. You know it is Liberty Mutual. Same with Allstate, right? And their whole Mayhem campaign. You know it's Allstate. So we've got color elements to a distinctive design. We're going to have fonts. We have to be consistent with these things. We also might have characters that help people to recognize that this is you. So Geico's got the gecko. Liberty Mutual has the emu, and Allstate has Mayhem. These are helpful elements. Now, we're talking about videos, right? And you might not be doing videos right now. This might be beyond where you're at. So if we're just talking about a website, we're talking about colors, fonts, basic design elements. Do you have rounded corners or circles or square edges? We want to be consistent with those things, right? Is your logo unique, or does it look like another company? Now, what this could look like on the negative side of things in a way that fails is you run advertising and people think it's somebody else, right? Years ago, Miller Lite did that. They ran ads, and the ads felt like Bud Light. And millions of people saw these ads, and a significant portion thought that they were ads for Bud Light. That's the failure, right? We're looking at colors and things, but we're also looking at this ethos. What is your brand? How does your brand come across? These are the things we're considering with distinctive design. Can somebody recognize that this is you when they see your website, your ads, your marketing, right? So this is why building memories is the first law and the most foundational, is because we need to get your story and your design right before we go out and start getting in front of people. Because if your story's not clear and your design's not distinctive, when we go out and get in front of people, how are they going to recognize that this is you? They're not, right? An example would be if every ad that you ran had different colors and different fonts in it. You're not building memories there, right? There's a certain level of repetition to this, and every time they see your ad, we need them to know that this is you. Red Bull's another great example with their kind of cartoony commercials. The minute that Red Bull commercial starts and it uses that cartoony imagery, you know this is Red Bull, right? Even if you're not running videos, the question is, how do you do that with yours? How do you make your story clear enough and your design distinct enough that people recognize this is you from the minute that they land on your website or that they see your ad? And there's a huge amount of consistency you got to stick with here. This is not about making all sorts of changes to stay relevant. No, we need the design and the story to be consistent, and certain elements within that can change. So all of these insurance companies and then Red Bull are great examples of this. The emu is present in many of the Liberty Mutual ads. The yellow color is there. They're on a lot of their ads are on the dock, having some odd conversation, but it's recognizable. So you can change the elements within that, but then the structure is the same, right? Red Bull is going to have that same basic cartoony design, same basic story concept of Red Bull gives you wings, but it's a different short story. Maybe it's somebody escaping an island, or somebody running from a shark, or somebody running. I think I saw one where they're running from like a sheriff. So it's somebody who needs to go somewhere, and Red Bull helps them do that, right? So that it can still stay fresh. It can still stay, you can still have changing elements within that, but your story and design are going to be consistent. So that's the first law, building memories. Once we have that built out as our foundation, now we're going to move into the second law, which is maximize availability. Are you available where people are looking? So pretty easy. First question is, where do people go to look for what you sell? We want you to be easy to find. This is the first principle of maximizing availability, is being easy to find. So that's that question. Where do they go? Where do I need to be found? Is it Google search? Possibly, but not for everybody. Is it in the grocery store? Possibly, but not for everybody. So that's why you got to start with that question. Where do people go when they look for what you sell? I run a marketing agency. Where do people go when they're looking for a marketing agency? They often go to Google. So we want to show up in Google search. But this can go well beyond that. Maybe if a CEO or a CMO has a coach, maybe they go ask their coach for a recommendation. So that's where they go. Now they're looking for a marketing agency. They go ask their business coach. So it would be wise of us to build relationships with business coaches so that when somebody goes to their business coach and asks for recommendation, they might recommend us. So you can see that this can be pretty broad. There's a lot of places that folks might go when they're looking, but that's this key element, is when a potential customer goes to look, where is that? And how do you get there? So if you run a home services company, maybe you do HVAC or something, Google My Business could be part of that, huge part of that. Yelp could be a huge part of that. Angie's List, I haven't been on that for a while, but that used to be a thing. Maybe even Nextdoor. I've got a friend who started an HVAC or a plumbing company, and they got all their initial business from monitoring Nextdoor, questions on Nextdoor. And when somebody asked, hey, anybody have a plumber that they use, they would comment. So they were just being present on Nextdoor. So first principle of maximizing availability is be easy to find. The second principle is to be easy to buy, right? Somebody found you. They're looking into you. Maybe they're having a conversation. Maybe they're just looking at your website. Are you competitive? Are you pleasant? Do you make it easy to buy from you or difficult? So this could be on your website, looking at the structure. Is it easy to schedule a call with you? Is your phone number there? Do you answer the phone when somebody calls? How about your pricing, right? Imagine the ice cream in the grocery store. If your ice cream is 3 times as expensive as your competitors, you're probably not going to get bought very often. Now, if you have categorized yourself slightly differently, maybe you have, grass-fed milk. And my wife just got this ice cream yesterday, and it's, grass-fed milk and cream. It is only sweetened with honey and nothing else. There's like a total of 5 ingredients in the whole thing. It's like milk, cream, honey, eggs, and salt or something. So this ice cream has differentiated itself into a space of more natural ice cream. So they kind of are competing with the standard cheap, gallon-sized buckets of ice cream with ridiculous ingredients that you can't even pronounce in there. They're kind of competing with them. but not really. So they don't need to be the exact same price as that ice cream. They need to be the same price as their more direct competitors, which might be other grass-fed ice creams. They might be in competition with some of these like plant-based ice creams as well. Because if you think about who's going to buy this more natural ice cream, health-conscious folks. So now when somebody's more health-conscious, what are they looking at? Well, that's their competitors. So they need to stay competitive with that category. So they still can't go charge $20 for, a little tiny quart or something, or even less than a quart. They're going to have to be reasonable with it. So that's the question for you is, are you staying competitive? Are you making it easy to buy, right? So maximize availability has two principles. Number one is be easy to find where people go to look for what you sell. And the second is be easy to buy. That includes the customer journey. It might include your website. It might include, are you listed on Amazon if you sell products? Because some folks, they're not even going to Google to look for products anymore. They're only going to Amazon. So being listed on Amazon for a lot of companies these days, a lot of these e-commerce shops, would be both being easy to find because somebody won't find you if you're not there, and also being easy to buy. Amazon's made it so easy. This is part of why Amazon dominates the e-commerce space, is they've made it so easy to buy, right? If you sell on Amazon and you also sell on your website and you want people to buy from your website instead, which is the case for a lot of e-commerce companies, are you offering free shipping? Like, this is the biggest thing that I see on e-commerce websites that sell on Amazon and on their own site, is they're charging for shipping. Why would I buy from you if you're going to charge me the same price as Amazon for the product, and then you're also going to charge me from shipping? I can just go pay Amazon the same amount of money. You're going to lose the 30% or whatever Amazon takes, and I'm still going to get free shipping. So you're not even staying competitive with yourself on a different platform. So this is what we need to be considering is, are we easy to buy? All right, let's move on to the third law of marketing, which is we need to be reaching the market. So if we think about kind of directionality here, maximize availability is about people coming to you. They're the ones taking action, moving into the space. They're the ones who are looking, and you need to be findable. Reach the market is the opposite direction. This is you going to people. This is where advertising comes in. This is a huge portion of marketing, at least marketing spend, is going to people. So Facebook ads is going to be a big part of this category, this law of marketing. Now, just like with the other three, there's two elements to reaching the market. The first is we need to get in front of all users. Now, what do I mean by this? This is where we kind of start to get a little potentially controversial. Let me start with the end goal. This might not be your goal right now, right? Because the laws of marketing are going to apply to companies at all phases, right? The laws of marketing are timeless. These are true across industries, across sizes, across timeframes. For a large company, the goal is to get in front of every single person who might buy ever. So if you look at car advertising, this is a great example. They're advertising everywhere. Am I in the market right now? No. I'm not buying a car anytime soon. I like the cars that I have. But at some point, I will be. So they're still advertising me. They've got billboards. They've got ads on TV and on streaming platforms and in magazines, right? Everywhere that a human being might be, you're going to see an advertisement for a car. Okay, that's the end goal, is you think about who might be the people who would buy from us at some point, and we're going to advertise to all of them. That might not be your goal right now. When you're starting off, it often makes sense to start with a niche. Let's talk landscaping companies because it's a great visual for this. Let's say I'm a guy with a lawnmower and I'm going to start a landscaping company, but it's just me and a lawnmower. Okay, so what do I sell? I'm going to mow your lawn. And where? Well, in places that I can walk or drive my lawnmower to. So it's going to stay in a pretty limited area. I'm going to mow lawns there. I'm going to start making some money. Maybe I'm going to buy a truck. Okay, now I can drive further with my lawnmower. Okay, now maybe I'm going to hire somebody, but I want them to be in the same area. We haven't necessarily tapped out this particular market yet. Maybe it's a zip code or 4 or 5 zip codes that we're serving right now. Okay. I continue to grow. And my possible customers are everybody with lawns in this, limited area. At some point, though, I'm going to add additional zip codes to our service area. That's going to open up additional people that we can sell to. At some point, I might add additional services. Now, not everybody has a lawn. Not everybody who has a lawn wants somebody else to mow it. Some folks mow it themselves. So I might add services that those folks want. And so you can see I'm going to start building out in concentric circles, both in terms of the locations that we serve and in terms of the services as well. So maybe I start adding in services that commercial property owners might want. Maybe we will plant gardens and maintain those, things like that. So I'm adding to the list of people who might want to do business with me. In another service like marketing, you might start with one thing that you do and one industry that you serve. So maybe you do SEO and you do it for attorneys. This is kind of it's not a real distinction in the same way that a person who has a lawnmower is actually physically limited by the place, by the locations that they can get to, right? That is a real limiting factor. In an industry like marketing, if a person does SEO only with attorneys, could they do SEO for somebody else? Yes. But part of the reason to focus in on a niche is you can accelerate the ease of your sales. So thinking about that element of maximize availability, making it easy to buy. One of the ways to make it easy to buy is to have testimonials of people that are similar to the people you're trying to sell to. So in landscaping, it's a location thing, and it's look at how nice this person's front yard is. What that person does doesn't matter as much to me. But if I'm serving homes that are in a standard kind of average neighborhood, and then I go try to sell my services to a $3 million mansion, they might not trust that I can handle it, right? So you can see how serving people like me, right, or like you, the customer, serving people like that customer will make it easier to sell to other people like that customer. If I got 3 or 4 mansions in this landscaping business, 3 or 4 massive, beautiful properties, now it's going to be easier to sell to other massive, beautiful properties. So it's possible that when I say you're going to reach all users, at this stage in your business, that might not be everybody, right? A marketing agency will eventually, if they want to continue growing, will eventually want to sell to all businesses. That is the only real limiting factor, is businesses are the ones who do marketing. So that's who we're going to sell marketing to. But before we get there, we might want to set a niche, a location, or an industry, something where we can sell to customers who are similar to each other to make it easier to get the next customer. If I'm a marketing agency that does SEO for attorneys, and I've got 5 attorneys that I've done SEO for and that we got great results for, and they are getting additional clients because of our SEO, that makes it easy to say to another attorney, we can help you. And that attorney then believing us. So where I'm going with this is there's concentric circles to this all users concept. And so you're going to consider, who is my concentric circle right now? The goal is eventually to have the largest concentric circle possible, at least if your goal is to grow and grow and grow. Some folks want to have $1 million company and then they're done. They're happy. That's fine. Maybe you pick a niche. You're going to do SEO for attorneys in Colorado, and you're never going to expand beyond that. If that's your goal, that's fine. You're not going to continue growing once you've tapped out the market, but that's fine. You have chosen who your potential users are. If you want to continue growing, you would go from attorneys, doing SEO for attorneys in Denver, to doing SEO for attorneys in Colorado, to doing SEO for attorneys in the United States, to doing SEO for every freaking business possible in the United States eventually. And then adding additional services. Now we're going to do SEO and Google Ads. Now we're going to do that and websites. Now we're going to add in, right? But you're not going to do it all at the same time. I mean, you can, but you need to be able to say, we sell this thing to people like you. So that's the definition of all users. So consider where are you at in your customer, in your business journey? Who are you selling to? And then how do you get in front of all of those people? So my marketing strategy, if I'm selling SEO to attorneys in Denver, is going to be slightly different from my marketing strategy if I'm selling SEO to attorneys in Colorado, right? When I launch Facebook ads, it's going to have a different location setting to it. And we will slowly work our way out. But that's the big question. So first we're going to ask, who are the users, right? And I just monologue on that for a while. But once we know who your users are at this time in your business journey, now we're going to get into how do we get in front of all of them? Now I can hear your thoughts. Why would we focus on all users? Because you did not mishear me. That's what I said. We do want to focus on the broadest target audience that we possibly can. So let's just address the commenters before they get to work, typing furiously here. I'm not going to get too far into strategies, but we'll cover this for the sake of the haters. So we want to target the broadest possible audience. And the reason is, if we consider, the common marketing guru recommendation is to create customer avatars. And they go pretty deep, where I read one that another agency had made for a client of ours before we were working with them, and they sent it to us. And one of the avatars was CEOs of fast growing companies. And this was a company that does software engineering. And so they're avatar CEOs, and they went deep here. They included things like, this person wants to be the next Elon Musk. Okay, so let me ask you, first off, how are we going to target this person? Are we going to create a Facebook ads target audience where we are somehow filtering by whether or not a CEO wants to be the next Elon Musk? No. Dear God, please no. Beyond that, though, that one we can say is fairly ridiculous. What about this person reads the Wall Street Journal? Same thing. How are you going to target that in your ads as a software company? You're not. You can, on certain platforms, target some of the other channels that they're watching, and in those cases, it might be helpful. But let's go down another road here. So think about Harley-Davidson's target audience. Who would you imagine they are selling to? Well, typically it's a person, it's a man with a long beard, tattoos, maybe he's in a biker gang. We've got a leather jacket, on and on. And we could say, likes to drink and swear, whatever we want to add to that. So the next question is, okay, well, what percentage of Harley Davidson's sales come from that individual? Because that's what matters. 3.5%. That's a real number. It might be slightly different in 2024, 2025, whenever you're watching this. But that's typically about what it sits at, 3.5%. So do you really want to create a marketing campaign that will only get you 3.5% of your potential sales? That's the real question here. The majority of Harley Davidson sales come from the average motorcycle owner who doesn't care as much what motorcycle they drive, who does not find their identity, who does not, in their motorcycle, who does not have a leather jacket and in a biker gang and all this stuff. So that's the reality of targeting, is if you go deep and you target this very narrow audience of your absolute ideal clients, what you're actually doing is significantly decreasing the number of sales that you will have. Coca-Cola historically gets 50% of their revenue from people who buy less than one can per year. Let me repeat that because this is an astounding number. Historically, 50% of Coca-Cola's revenue comes from people who buy less than one can of Coke per year. That's a big deal. Your sales in the long run will likely be similar, where you will have a large percentage of your revenue from people who do not buy as much as you want them to and who do not look the way that you would expect them to look. So that's the biggest part of why we want our targeting to be fairly broad. Now, there's exceptions. So if I'm going to cold call, if I'm going to spend my own time cold calling, yeah, I want to call the people who appear to be highly qualified. In most cases, we still want to keep the questions that we're asking to highly qualify them as targeted as possible. So can they afford you? That matters a lot. A person who can't afford you, you do not want to spend your time selling to them. Huge question right there. And this is a part where a lot of folks get their heartstrings pulled. Even if they have these crazy avatar things, they're taking sales calls with people who can't afford them. Oh yeah, I just want to see if this is going to work out. No, get out of those sales calls. Cancel them. Find out if they can afford you before you're spending your time doing that. Don't cold call people who you think can't afford you. There can be other limiting factors, like I just discussed, potentially location, potentially industry. So marketing agency, us, we only sell to business owners. Well, we only sell to businesses. We are a B2B company, but we will take sales calls with people who are not the owner. They don't have to be a CEO to talk to us. The company has to be big enough that they can afford us. But we will talk to other individuals because at certain size companies, the CEO is not going to be talking to a marketing agency. It's going to be the CMO or a marketing director or something along those lines. Now, I'm not going to go into sales. I was going to go down a rabbit trail there about you need to have decision makers, and yes, of course. But what we're asking here is what actually matters. And whether or not somebody reads the Wall Street Journal does not matter unless you are considering advertising in the Wall Street Journal. Okay. So we generally want our target audience to be as broad as possible. In the digital ad space, what you'll typically find, what we have found often, is that a broad target audience also brings in leads, qualified leads, at a cheaper cost. which is really the number that matters. So we had a wedding venue as a client and we experimented with this. We targeted people who are engaged because they're the ones who are going to be using a wedding venue. And we also targeted everybody in the area that could drive to the wedding venue. And when we were targeting everyone, we saw that there were cheaper cost per qualified lead, right? Facebook is still running their algorithms. They're still trying to get us in front of people who will convert. Facebook and Google have massive amounts of interest data. I mean, that's why Gmail is free, is because Google's reading your emails to see what you are currently interested in and what you are buying so that they can advertise to you, right? Facebook's paying attention to what you're liking and who you're following and what you're searching and all these things. And so they've got a lot of data for their algorithms to serve up to the people who they have information about that might be interested in what you're doing. But even like a billboard, you think about who sees a billboard. Everybody sees a billboard. Is everybody who sees that billboard going to buy? No. Does that make a billboard a bad investment? No. So we want to be advertising to the broadest target audience we possibly can. Now, beyond that, let's get into the second part of reaching the market, which is uses. So this is a fairly simple concept, and we're going to make it actionable. The concept is, how can people use your product? If we go back to building memories, what are we building memories around? Well, notice that when you go to buy a car, you don't think of Apple. Apple doesn't sell cars, so that's not a bad thing. When you go to buy a phone, everyone will think of Apple, even if they're not going to buy an iPhone. So that's kind of this uses space. First off, what do you sell? We want to be building memories and reaching people with what you sell. But beyond that, we want to be considering, why would people use your product? How would they use it? And this applies to services as well. Where would they use it? Who might they be with when they use it? We want to be asking these questions to build a complete picture of the uses, build a complete picture of our target audience as well. So you think about when the iPhone launched, it only did 3 things. Really, it combined 3 other things. It was a phone, so you could call and text. Internet, so you can access the internet. And the third thing was the music, so you didn't have to carry an iPod around, right? It replaced the iPod. And that was supposedly Steve Jobs' initial motivation was, I don't want to carry a phone and an iPod everywhere. The initial iPhone did not even have an app store. They added the app store. Well, that massively increased the number of uses, the ways that you can use the iPhone and why you might want an iPhone. And giving people more reasons to use your product gives them more reasons to buy your product or services. So over the years, they mostly market around their camera at this point. But they also, I think one of the most interesting features that they've added recently is this satellite connection. I mean, you think about a person who is an avid backpacker. That is a huge selling point. I'm going to replace my phone so that I know that I am safe when I'm out in the middle of nowhere. That is an incredible use. Now, that's not a massive number of people, but at this point, Apple is scraping the bottom of the barrel. They have already sold to everybody they possibly can. So they're looking at additional uses that they can add, additional functionality that they can add to bring in the small percentage of people who is not yet using an iPhone. And it's working. They continue to take on market share. So with uses, what we want to start with, it's the same as the users. We're going to start with what you have now. We're going to build out in concentric circles, taking on more uses over a long period of time. We're talking about decades. I don't think you should go sell everything to everybody tomorrow, right? Just like I was saying with the users, there's a niche. And when you're small, when you're under tens of millions of dollars, it makes sense to stay niched. Same with your uses. Don't go be all things to all people. Down the road, yeah, but Apple launched, at this point, 15 years ago or so, and they did not start with a device that does all the things that it does now, right? 15 years is a long time, because as a business owner, or as a marketer, or whoever you are living day by day by day. And it feels like I need to be doing all these things tomorrow, but you don't. Staying niche makes sense, both in terms of your users and your uses for the time being. There's likely enough. You can sell basically anything and get to $100,000 a month. There's likely enough that people to buy what you sell that you can reach $100,000 a month, which for some folks is all that they want to do, and that's fine. But if you want to go beyond that, that's where we're going to start with your uses. How can you use? Why, how, where, with whom? And maybe in a few years, we're going to add more. And a few years later, we'll add more. HubSpot's another great case study of this. They really didn't do much when they started. And they are constantly adding additional, they call them hubs, but they're additional features. Basically combining additional apps into HubSpot to provide more, one, to get more money from their current customers, and two, to provide more reasons for people who are not customers to become customers, right? But that's the long game. Today, you're just going to be talking about the ways that people can use what you've got. So as a marketing agency, if all you do is SEO, that's fine. There are plenty of people to sell SEO to. If all you do is SEO for attorneys, that's fine. There are enough attorneys for you to go make millions of dollars doing SEO for attorneys. When you're going beyond that into the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars is where we start to go big. Now, you might be asking, well, ClearBrand does more than just SEO. Yeah, we've kind of stepped into this. Doing multi-channel marketing is essentially our offer. We do websites, we do multi-channel marketing. And the secret sauce for us is in the combination. So really, we're a strategy company, and it's in that combination. So we still try to keep it as limited as we can while focusing in on the unique way that we approach strategy and then implementing the strategy. I might be just making excuses for us, but it's worked for a bit. All right, so that's the third law of marketing. So let's get into the fourth law of marketing. The fourth law is test and validate. Now, if you're picturing all of this, let's just draw a picture now that we have all four pieces. So in your head, picture a triangle. If you're on any of our video platforms, you'll see this on screen, and you've been seeing it on screen the whole time. But just for the person who's listening, it's a triangle, okay? You've got the flat edge across the bottom, and then the two sides meet in the middle up above. On the left side, we've got build memories. On the right side, we've got maximize availability. On the bottom, we've got reach the market. And in the middle of the triangle, we have test and validate. And the reason why test and validate is in the middle is because we need to be testing and validating everything. Generally speaking, pride is one of the best ways to go out of business. The prideful CEO who thinks that they know everything. We had a client who their phrase, they would say this to us all the time. Their phrase was, the CEO is never wrong, because that's how their CEO operated. I was rarely in calls with the CEO, but the fact that that was how they functioned was a huge red flag. I'm curious to see where they'll go, but don't be that guy. Hubris, there's a book by Jim Collins called The 5 Stages. No, it's called How the Mighty Fall. How the Mighty Fall, and they go through the 5 stages of decline. And one of them is hubris born of success. And that's a huge risk, is you're doing a good job, you're growing the company, and you start to think that you know everything. We cannot become that CEO for our own sakes, for the sake of the business, and for the sake of our employees. So we're going to be testing and validating everything. The truth is you're going to be wrong about something. And part of the definition of being wrong is that you don't know it. If you knew you were wrong, you're delusional, right? Like if you continued in that path, you're a crazy person if you know that you're wrong and you keep doing it. So part of being wrong is that we don't know that we're wrong. So how are we going to discover it? We're going to test and validate. Now, chances are if you're successful, you are right about a whole lot of things. Great. I think it's a good idea in general to keep track of the ideas that you have, the things that you implement, how you felt when you were making the decision, how the strength of the belief that you were right. So you could measure that on a scale of 1 to 10 or percentage or something. I was 60% sure that I was right about this thing, or I was 90% sure that I was right about this thing. And you track it, you write it down somewhere so that over time you can learn when you should be trusted. I do think it's good to know when to trust your intuition. I don't know anybody who really does this systematically and tries to find out when they can trust their own intuition. So I highly recommend that, number one. But number two, we're gonna test it. We're gonna discover the right answer, because that is key to being successful in business, is being right. But it's not about starting right. It's about becoming right. It's about getting to the right answer. There was a study done on chess where I believe that somebody had AI watch a whole bunch of chess matches and then basically figure out what's it take to win a chess game. And what the AI came up with, what it found was nobody actually wins in chess. Somebody loses. So you don't win by making the perfect move over and over and over and over. What happens is at some point, one of the players is going to make a mistake. If they each played the perfect game, they would probably end up in a stalemate. But somebody's likely going to make a mistake. In almost every game, there will be at least one mistake made. So the way to win is to not make mistakes that are devastating, that will put you in checkmate. But then when the opponent makes their mistake, you are prepared to pounce and to put them in checkmate, right? To devastate them. I think the same is true in business. You get to stay in business as long as you are right enough, as long as you are making enough right decisions. It is the mistakes that put us at risk of going out of business. And so the way to not make mistakes is to test and validate. And let's talk about how to do that. I mean, you're still going to make mistakes. That's the problem. It's a mistake, right? They're really unavoidable. So we want to be testing small. So just like everything else, there's 2 points to test and validate. We want to test small. That's the first thing here. If you're trying something new, if you're doing something different, if you just are convinced that you're right, maybe you're trying out messaging. The question is, how do we test this in a small way? I highly recommend reading the book Great by Choice by Jim Collins. It's different from Good to Great. In Good to Great, which everybody has heard of at least or read, I also recommend to read that one. Jim Collins and his team studied companies that were declining and were able to turn it around. Hence the name, Good to Great. They were good and they became great. Great by Choice is a study that Jim Collins and his team did on companies that survived chaos. And I love this book for a few reasons. One, it's more applicable to the entrepreneurial journey. Good to Great was studying established businesses that were declining. Great by Choice, a bunch of the businesses that they studied were startups, like Microsoft in their early years is one of the companies in the examples. So it's more applicable to entrepreneurship just because of how the study was done. But one of the conclusions that they came to was, how do you test things? And the idea is, let's say you've got 100 grand in the bank and the CEO says, we need to go launch this initiative, or we need to try this form of marketing. And they believe that they're right. And they put 100 grand, they're everything in the bank. They're so convinced that they're right. We're going to bet the farm on this thing. What if they are wrong? They're dead. They're going out of business. They're going out of business. So how do we avoid that? We're going to test small. If you got 100 grand in the bank, how small can you go? How do you keep this thing small? Maybe if it's a marketing initiative, since that's the topic of this video, maybe you're going to spend 5 grand on ads and you're going to pause and evaluate. And you'll spend another 5 grand, pause and evaluate, tweak things, spend another 5 grand, maybe spend 10 grand, pause and evaluate, tweak things, see if it's working. Try the messaging, try the marketing channel. I had a friend who they had 300 grand in the bank, and they had an option to do some kind of advertising at a conference that was going to cost 30 grand. That's a big risk. Is this conference going to be the right place? Is this going to be the right people? So they took this decision very seriously. They evaluated it very carefully. But that's the concept here. How do we keep our tests as small as possible? And that could mean time. Spending the least amount of time on this test that we can. Obviously, it needs to be a good enough test that you learn from it, but let's be reasonable here. What about money? Keeping this to be low, the money spent on this test as small as possible, or at least it's not going to put the business at risk. And now when I say the word small, that's going to depend on your business. That's going to depend on your cash flow. For a massive, for a company doing billions of dollars, maybe small is millions of dollars. For a company doing 100 grand a year, maybe small is no money, but we're going to spend some time on this. So testing small keeps your company safe. But there's another piece to testing and validating, which is the validation side of things. Once you've validated if this is a good idea, now what do? You got to go big. So that's the other element of test and validate. We're going to test small, and then we're going to go big once we've determined whether or not this is a good thing. If it is a good thing, now you go big. Now you dump a bunch of money or time into this thing. So let me share an example of us trying that, right? And it didn't actually go as well as we had hoped. So we, a couple of years ago, I thought that pay-per-lead marketing is the future of marketing. I still think that connecting marketing payments to performance makes a whole lot of sense. So we launched pay-per-lead marketing as a service, as a payment option for a specific service offering. And we put it on the website. And all of a sudden, now our goal was to test small. Our goal was to keep this to be a very small percentage of our customers, a small percentage of our revenue, while we figured out if this was viable. And when we put it on the website, all of a sudden, almost 100% of our sales calls were about pay-per-lead marketing. So even if people had found us by searching for something different, when they looked at our services and they saw pay-per-lead marketing, they suddenly became interested in that. Well, we tested this for almost 2 years, a year and a half, a little over a year and a half. And what we found is it's just not the right time for us to be doing this. It's, in our opinion, it's kind of fast food. So you have people who don't have a lot of money, typically are the ones who want to do pay-per-lead marketing. Not always, but often. And the competition has brought their prices so low that there's hardly any profits in pay-per-lead marketing. So because of both of these things, we decided this is not the space that we want to be in. We have rules within the business on how we go about business, and there's certain profits that we have decided that we are going to maintain so that we can stay in business long term, right? If you have zero profits and something, the economy tanks or something, you got no money in the bank, you're screwed. We don't want to be that company. So we have certain internal rules. We decided, hey, this is not the right space for us. Well, we had just gone 12, 18 months with almost all of our leads being from pay-per-lead marketing. And I say 12 to 18 because there was a little bit of time where we still were getting sales calls for our other marketing services that did not include this payment option. And that kind of trickled down to almost zero. After we've been doing this for 18 months, it was like all of our sales calls were pay-per-lead. So we decided, hey, this is not the space for us. We need to get out. But now all of our sales calls are about pay-per-lead. Well, what have we done? Was kind of the realization. In the middle of it, when we started, I had this initial concern. This is not a small test, right? And I've read Great by Choice. I'm giving you this advice that I knew 2 years ago and was like, oh, this is not a small test. But I was so excited we had like doubled our sales calls when we added this pay-per-lead marketing. And I was so excited by the number of sales calls we're getting that I was like, I don't care. So then when we decided to exit, because we learned through our testing and validating that this is not a space we wanted to be in, we had to rebuild our pipeline of, this is what we've been doing this for long enough that this is what people know us for. So we removed it from the site. And for the next few months, our sales calls were still, even people booking for another marketing service that we continued offering, they would still say, now, you guys do pay-per-lead marketing? So there's still this lag of this people remembering us, right? We had built memories for that. So what we should have done in retrospect, when we saw all these sales calls come in and we realized we're ranking like on the first page of Google for pay-per-lead marketing, this is part of how our sales calls doubled. We need to take down this page, or we at least need to have it so that it's not indexed by Google right now, so that we can maintain a certain percentage of sales calls that are not about pay-per-lead marketing, because we need to maintain these other services that we are offering as our primary source of revenue. We need to keep this test below a certain percentage of revenue, just in case we need to exit it. That's what we should have been saying. So we should have taken the page off of our website entirely, closed the deals that had come in during that phase that it was up, tested it, put the page back on our website when we needed more deals to continue the test with. Got more sales calls booked, taken the page off of our website again. Something along those lines is what we should have done to maintain the majority of our revenue coming from these services that were not experiments. That would have then helped to not build as many memories with a test and to not have as much revenue from a test. So when we shut it down, in a lot of ways, we were almost starting from scratch in terms of rebuilding our pipeline with the services that we had continued to offer the entire time, but we were no longer known for because pay-per-lead marketing is so exciting. That was rough, to be honest. Lots of conversations internally about, we got to go rebuild this and get known for these things that we've been doing the whole time, but we had been overtaken, right? So that's an example of what not to do. What we should have done after testing small and making sure that the test stayed small, what we should have done at that point was go big, if we validated it. And at that point, we could have left the page on the website. If we decided we're going to go so big that this is going to be the main thing we do, we could have shut down our other services. We could have made pay-per-lead our homepage. There's a lot of things that we could have done to go big after being validated, but we accidentally went big too soon on accident because it was such an exciting offer. So testing and validating, test small and make sure you keep the test small. You force the test into this small space, small in terms of total revenue, small in terms of total, research and development budget, or in terms of total ad spend. However, we're going to be measuring small, that is the right size for your company. Keep it small. And then if it gets validated, if it is something that you want to continue with, you go big at that point, and you can adjust the business, you can adjust the marketing, you can adjust the spend to go big. Double down on that thing if you validate it. If it is not validated, if you find out, hey, this is not something we should be doing, you shut it down. Now, I just gave an example as a business service, but this is also true of your marketing. So this might be a marketing channel. This might be an offer. This might be specific messaging. This could be images, right? We don't need to just think about this in these big ways of offering a new service or something like that. It's small ways. I've got a friend who has a few businesses, and in one of them, they decided to test whether they should create an online course. So what they did is they built out Facebook ads, and they created a landing page that made it look like you were going to provide your information and then be redirected to pay for the course. For all intents and purposes, it looked like you were about to give your credit card information. And so they ran Facebook ads to this landing page. People filled out the thing, and it turned out, hey, it was actually a wait list, right? But it looked like you were going to pay because they wanted to know, hey, before we go spend all the time creating this course, we want to know if it's even worth it. It's going to take us a lot of time and energy and money to make this course. So before we do that, let's test this. And that's why they built this out the way that they did, so that it looks like you're about to pay, but then you're not. They weren't even collecting money up front and then they were going to deliver it later. It was just a wait list. So they ran these ads, and the results came back so good. They were like, this can't be real. So they did it again. They made it look even more like you were going to pay if you clicked on the ad. And they made the Facebook ads look even more like you're buying this right now. And they still had incredible results. And they ran the numbers, and they were like, okay, even if this is a little off, even if we only get 25% of the sales that the wait list seems to be filling up with, we're still going to be massively profitable. This is still something absolutely that we should be doing. So they validated it. So what do? Well, they shut off the Facebook ads, so they're not getting more folks on the wait list. They went and they created the course. They launched it to the wait list and to the Facebook ads, right? That's what it looks like to test and validate. And I love this example because they figured out how to even test an online course, which most folks think, oh, that's easy enough. Maybe what I would do is I'll sell it and then I'll just deliver it weekly. These guys thought outside the box to make sure that it was a small test that they could validate, and they went big on it. So those are the 4 laws of marketing. That's all we're going to cover. That's a lot. That's all we're going to cover in this video. In the next one, we'll go through more of the action items and the marketing mansion, which walks through basically how to figure out what you're going to do and what to focus on and what not to focus on. We'll see you there. Thanks for listening to the Clear Brand Marketing Podcast. If you need help with your website or marketing, go to clearbrand.com. You can schedule a free strategy call with one of our consultants, or take advantage of our free resources to help you write, design, or implement a better website and marketing.